welcome to Brain Balance Live. I'm telling you that happy music made me doubly happy today, Heather, because you are here.
Yes, electricity and internet and all the things. So yes, I am so happy to be back, and I love that your pretty shirt matches my wall.
I know we did not even plan that, but it really does look nice. So I'll just have to wear this shirt more often.
Every time.
Every time. You're gonna be like, does she do laundry? Who's to say?
Hey, simplify life, girl.
That's right. Today we are going to be talking about distractibility on our little show today. But before we do that, Heather, I just want to tell everybody what a source of positivity you are and how wonderful you are at building up this community. I'm a fellow Brain Balance mom, and Heather, you can follow her there, as you can see, at the Hidden Churn. She gives all kinds of tips. She's here to help us. She is a therapist. She's a board certified cognitive specialist, as well as a National Autism Summit speaker. And so really the fact that she comes here and lets me pick her brain for all of you is just such a gift. So thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you, Jen. I love doing these, and I appreciate everyone out there who shares their time with us. And you, I know you're a busy, busy mom, multitasking, and you take the time out to do this and be the voice of parents. And I think that's awesome.
I love being here. And actually, anyone who's watching, even if you're watching on the replay, please drop your comments. Heather will always answer them, even if we can't answer them this time. Shoot, it might spark an idea for us for the next time. So make sure that you drop those comments into the comments section for us. All right. So Heather, how are we going to start off our convo today?
We're going to start out with the first slide and talk about, there are many different types of attention. And I want to do a little bit of myth busting. I've done this in the past, but this is a show about attention and distractibility, and those are not the same thing. So one of the misconceptions about individuals, and this applies to all ages, I mean, adults, little ones, and everywhere in between, is that ADHD or issues with attention, this is with or without a diagnosis or actually having ADHD, is a matter of an inability to sustain attention. And that is not true. It is an issue of regulating attention. And I'm going to come back to that. You're going to realize what a strong point this is as we go on. But sustained attention is what people tend to think of the most, probably. Just the ability to keep your attention on something for an extended period of time. Okay. And I know sometimes it looks like my child can pay attention when they want to, or it's something they're interested in, and then they don't when it's something else. And that is, it looks that way. That is, and that I know where that perception comes from. But how hard are they churning to pay attention to a certain task? If they are awesome at a video game, they're in easy street. I can walk all day long. I cannot sprint all day long. They do things that are challenging for them. I can't sustain it as long, not to mention the different chemical reactions that happen in the brain. And there are many things that go into that. But focused attention, which sounds really kind of redundant, but this is one of the developmental stages of attention, but it continues throughout life, is being able to direct your attention to a specific type of information, visual or auditory. You can imagine how kids with sensory struggles, if they get overwhelmed with sound, they may tune it out because it overwhelms them, or they're not perceiving it strongly enough and it goes right over their head and it looks like they just spaced out when really it could be a sensory processing issue. And it may be not a modulation, how much issue, it may be garbled, garbage in, garbage out. There are all kinds of issues that come in here. Selective attention is the ability to filter extraneous stimuli and know what to focus on. A lot goes into this. Naturally, that can also play in with sensory issues that may not be obvious. Keep in mind that just because kids don't squint in bright light or cover their ears does not mean they're not having sensory issues. It may be an accuracy issue or knowing what to do with that information. I have to know the context that I'm in and what is the most important thing right now. Having different layers of importance, and I need to tune this out and hone in on this. So I'm going to ignore the TV and pay attention to my homework. Yeah. I'm going to ignore the sound in the hallway and hone in on what the teacher's saying. That can be sensory, or it can be a cognitive challenge of knowing what is the most important thing right now. Yeah. Alternating attention requires a lot of cognitive flexibility. So let's say a child is sitting in class and there is a loud boom in the hallway. pretty much, most likely, everybody in that room, unless they're undermodulated with auditory, is going to turn around and look and see what that was, but then they redirect their attention back to the teacher. Some kids may have difficulty once they get distracted, bringing it back to where it's supposed to be. Or parents do this all the time. I'm talking to my child and I'm paying attention to this. Oh, there's the phone call from the doctor. I have to answer the phone. You switch your attention to this, get that appointment scheduled. You pick back up where you left off with that conversation. So that is difficult. But kids with brain imbalances have difficulty with cognitive flexibility because they don't have as many highways of communication in the brain. And they may see everything. If you have kids who see black and white, everything's great, everything's horrible. This is right, this is wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. That's cognitive inflexibility, and that can be leading to attentional issues. Divided attention is multitasking. This is also something parents do all the time.
I'm telling you, so much of this, when I read it, was relatable to my own self. And even though I know that I have strengths that are, different than the people in my household, I could see a little bit of all of us in the different things.
Sure. We need all of these types and know which type of attention to call on in which scenario.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, if we're just having we can listen to music and sing to it while we unload the dishwasher because there's a lot of habitual movement and just muscle memory going on there. But if your best friend is at your house and talking about a really serious issue and they're in tears, you might find it difficult. Number one, you wouldn't want to be unloading the dishwasher at that time, but you wouldn't even be able to attend to what she's saying on the level you need to because it requires more than surface level. This is a song I've known since the 80s and I can sing it without even thinking about it.
Right.
And for our kids, so many things don't get into that automated mode. They have fewer things that are automated, partially because of development and partially because of issues that we're talking about today.
Yeah.
It is.
I always thought that it was, I didn't know how lucky I was that I was really good at, I think you called it, is it the focused? When I was a really good student because I could always tune everything out and focus on the test. And my husband, Corey, he says he always struggled because he needs complete silence and any kind of noise or whatever made it very hard for him to focus on the test.
Right.
I never realized how lucky I was.
Yeah. Selective attention is difficult for so many people. And so I wanted to just sort of lay the groundwork. There are many types of attention. Start logging. What are the patterns? When does this happen? What are the circumstances? Was it loud? Was it something that is habitual, automated, or something that required very complex thought? And are they able to switch gears once they do get off track? All of these things, start making notes so that you can start pinpointing what type of attentional issue you have or your children have.
You are blowing my mind right now.
That's what I'm here to do.
I'm like, yeah, of course. Why am I not doing this?
Right. I'm here to scold you. No.
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 To enlighten us on these things that you have worked so hard to study on. I'm just like every week I learn so much. Keep going.
Good. So now let us differentiate this from distractibility. The next slide, understanding distraction. I have his name down there. He used to be a professor at Stanford, super brilliant guy, best-selling author. And he says, how do you know what's a distraction if you don't know what it's distracting you from? That sounds simple, but it's kind of powerful. And this is a good conversation to have with kids. When we've talked about being a schedule builder. It is okay for them to have downtime. You want to watch a family movie? Go for it. If that is in the calendar and what you plan to do, that is not distracting you. But if you're supposed to be doing homework and you're on social media, that social media is a distraction. If I don't know what my plan is, I can't know if something is a distraction or not. But that eases up the guilt and helps them start seeing shades and degrees of things instead of, oh, I can't do this because it's a distraction, that kind of thing. Notice that the word action is in both distraction and traction. He says the opposite of distraction is not focus, it is traction. Distraction is anything that moves us further away from what we want. Traction involves the behaviors that move us closer to what we want. What do you want? Why am I doing this? Is what I'm doing aligned with that? And distraction, I've already been talking about a lot of the causes. We're going to go deeper into that. But to know what you want traction on, you have to know what your priorities and values are and the why of focus. Focus in and of itself doesn't mean anything. I talk all the time about getting kids engaged. Kids want autonomy, competence, mastery, connection, purpose. Why? Why, mom? Why, dad? Answer those questions. Connect it to something they care about, and then you start getting traction. And then we need to consider there are both internal and external triggers. So often we think of distractions as media, or I've already talked about sensory stimulation, how that can be external. Yes, there are distractions and we have to control those. Many of the triggers for distraction are internal. A huge percentage of distractibility comes because I want to escape discomfort.
I am so guilty of this. I feel like I play the mindless type of games on my phone where you just like crush dots and things
Right.
Always out of like fear of something. I haven't really psychoanalyzed myself enough yet to figure out why I do it. But I do, when I should be doing other things, I pick up my phone and start playing stupid games.
Yes. Anytime you're like, I dread this, I don't know that I can do it to the level I want to do it. That goes really in with the recovering perfectionism that you shared in the perfectionism show. But what types of discomfort might your kids be trying to avoid? I already stand out in class, and when I turn this in, it's not going to measure up. I'm going to disappoint my parents. I'm going to disappoint my teacher. I'm anxious about XYZ. And so I'm going to do something mindless to escape that feeling. So I've got a solution for that later. Okay. I wanted to
good.
We have talked about the types of attention we have talked about. So distraction can lead to inattention, but not all attention issues come from distractibility. Okay, let's move on.
That makes so much sense.
I'm not going to talk line by line this whole slide. What I want to get across is the foundation of focus, overcoming issues with attention or distractibility comes down to self-regulation. I said attention is an issue of regulating it. Self-regulation, we often think of that as emotional. If I don't have emotional regulation, internal triggers distract me, as we just said. But with the functional, emotional, developmental capacities, this is what we as therapists look at, one of the things, as far as development, but it applies to all of us. The ability to be calm, alert, and attend has to be in place before I can start having meaningful engagement and relationship skills, verbal and nonverbal communication, start combining idea and emotion, considering many perspectives. I talk about theory of mind all the time. I'm right, you're wrong. Being able to put myself into your shoes, see the gray areas. Not everything is black and white. And be able to reflect on my actions and make changes so I don't keep repeating the same patterns. If you have kids with issues in any of these areas, think about, is there a regulation issue? If you have fidgety, wiggly ones, have trouble sitting still, that's regulation. If you have impulsive kids, that's a regulation issue. Attention and distractibility come down to self-regulation. And I just love this quote. This is from Engaging Autism. I use this in that National Autism Summit that I spoke at. But this does not just apply to autism. This is anyone with issues in these areas. To learn to interact socially, children need to be able to focus, be calm, and actively take in information from their experiences with others, from what they see, hear, smell, touch, and taste, sensory, and the way they move, motor. We have kids come in all the time who are the MVP of 3 different sports teams, and we find sensory motor challenges. It doesn't mean they look awkward and clumsy, but the rhythm and the timing is not in place, and I get rhythm and timing in my body before I get rhythm and timing in my brain where I can plan out tasks and know I'm going to have this burst of attention on it and so forth. There's a lot of research about developmental coordination disorder and dyslexia, ADHD, on and on, different kinds of challenges. Okay.
That is so, I really, really love that this whole thing. I'm going to like screenshot this and like go back and look through all of this. This is so good.
Yeah, it's really important to understand that's the foundation, and really expanding what I think tends to be the notion of what regulation is.
Yeah.
What people think about it is accurate. It's more narrow than what it actually involves.
Got it.
All right, Bess. Thank you. Let's move on. I want to give one example of the sensory. 100% of our 12 muscles and nerves involved in visual perception and processing need to be working accurately for us to attend cognitively to our utmost. There is a very strong link between visual perception and processing and attention and distractibility. Visual focus means I can take in everything in my visual field, and then I choose what to attend to. If I say, look at this picture, what do you see?
The first thing I saw was the woman looking away.
Yes. And if that's the first thing you saw, you were paying more attention to the left side of the screen. Some of you may have seen an elderly gentleman. You were paying more attention to the right side of the screen. How can I attend to what you were talking about as my teacher or my parent if from a sensory standpoint, I am not taking in the whole visual field? And it can look like a comprehension issue, and people might even question brilliant people's intelligence when it's sensory, which has nothing to do with intelligence. Yeah. Focus is super tied. We need regulation to manage our eye movements and to take in the whole thing. It's okay to see one thing first, but a lot of our kids would never see the other side of the coin here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
I just thought that was a powerful visual. I could do this for all the senses, but visual is more easily demonstrable on slides, obviously.
Yeah.
Here's another one. What do you see in the picture? And so some of you are going to see say an alligator or a crocodile, and others are going to see a boat with a couple of people in it. So most people have a tendency to see the big picture, both literally and abstractly first. You're more of a detail-oriented person, or you're a big picture person. There's not a right or wrong in that, but we have to have both. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of our kids with brain imbalances it looks like they're sloppy with the details, but it's because they don't know which ones to attend to at which time, going back to the types of attention. But a lot of kids with ADHD tend to have more issues with the big picture, the context. What is the main idea? What's the takeaway here? You impart parental wisdom, and they corrected detail. That shirt wasn't yellow, it was orange. And you're like, not the point. Okay, thank you. And you just missed my beautiful life lesson that I teared up about, Yeah. So do your kids know when to pay attention to the big picture and when to pay attention to the details? There's another thing that's really fascinating called bike shedding. It's also called Parkinson's law of triviality, after the guy who invented it is not related to Parkinson's disease. But bike shedding is our brain's amazing ability to convince us that the minutia that we are spending an inexorbitant amount of time on is important. I mean, it's crucial. So let's say that you're working on a science fair project and you're making a poster for it, but then you also have this model of the brain. Of course, I say brain. That's always what I wanted to say. And you spend all this time on the poster, but it's important because the more I work on it, the better it looks. What is the big picture? I have to finish this thing. This model also matters, but our brain tricks us into believing that, no, you're right to keep spending time over here because it's an avoidance tactic because I'm nervous about this part over here. And so I'm actually avoiding it by making this poster perfect.
It's kind of amazing how much work our brain does without us even knowing.
I know that rascal's really good for us, but it can be a little ornery sometimes.
Yeah.
Bike shedding does not serve us well. Do your kids do that? Do they make excuses for why they needed to spend this much time on this part of an assignment or a paper or a project? We all, it's a natural tendency. And then you add in issues with seeing the big picture and how the details fit into it. It may be that they really don't perceive how it all goes together because that needs a lot of brain communication for that to happen.
Yeah.
So we have to get to the root, address those brain imbalances, take care of sensory issues, not just modifying the environment, but take care of them so they can process sensory information. Graphic organizers are very powerful for big picture and details. Because the big picture, the main idea goes in the center, and they can sprout off ideas about what they want to do with their project or what the different paragraphs of their story are going to be about. If anybody wants samples of those, you can reach out to me, but you can also Google graphic organizer. It's like an outline in a fun way for kids.
Yeah. Yeah. We've found a lot of success with those graphic organizers. They're very helpful.
Yes, they're fantastic. And back to being a schedule builder, we need to teach our kids when they need to have the different details of the project done in order to finish the big picture, which is a completed assignment due on time. So have due dates worked in there. I highly recommend collaborating on that, not doing it for them. A, they're not going to grow if we do it for them. And B, psychological reactance is, don't tell me what to do. Even though I know you're right, I'm not going to do it just because. Like last week, my mom told me to wear a coat when I went outside at like wind chill minus 15 or whatever in Texas. No, I'm not going to because you told me to. And then you get out there and I only do it when my body's hurting because it's so cold outside. It's why you don't want your boss micromanaging you. So to tame that rebel, collaborate, give them a voice, give them choices. Even in the homework schedule, let them choose maybe which math or reading or science or social studies they work on first. Have flexibility in there, and then they feel empowered. I'll say a little more about that later.
Yeah, I love that. And I love talking about just what the natural consequence of your making that choice. Like, I just want to let you know, it's very cold outside. So yeah, you're probably going to get cold. So like, just no, you still want to okay, let's go try.
Yeah. And this is, since you said that, I have this on a different slide, but this just slides right in there. Opportunity cost. It is fantastic to talk to kids about opportunity cost. So, I want to play the video game. Okay, you can play it for XYZ amount of time. But if you decide that, you are forfeiting the fun family thing we were going to do together tonight. Do you still choose that? They have the choice. You're not telling them what to do. Opportunity cost. Help them consider the opportunity cost.
Yeah.
That is what that is called. And there is fascinating research about how another thing that leads to distractibility is we think, oh, I want to read a book. I want to write a book. I want to do a painting. I want to take Spanish classes. And then it's the weekend, you're exhausted, and you're like, that's just too much work.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to watch Netflix all day. That's a distraction. It's not traction toward your goal. Why do we do that? Because the brain tells us that, I can just pull up my phone and start doing this thing that is mindless. Is reading, you can even lay in your bed. Is reading really that much effort? There are studies that there's no more effort into these things you want to do. So what you do is make those other things less accessible. Mark off times you can't touch your phone. Have the book you want to read sitting out. And then that helps overcome that bias in our brains that says something is effort that really isn't.
I love that.
Another thing that really can get in the way of attention, it's super marked by distractibility, is sluggish cognitive tempo, abbreviated SCT. This can look a lot like inattentive form of ADHD, but it's not the same thing. Some kids have both diagnoses. Dr. Russell Barkley has done a lot of research on this. He has questionnaires that people can fill out to identify this because it's not yet in the DSM-5. But all of us clinicians out there working with these kids, it is a real thing. It does exist, and it needs to be differentiated so we're not shooting at the wrong bullseye. But there tend to be fewer disruptive, oppositional, or antisocial behaviors, those external behaviors that are very visible, and even more symptoms of anxiety and depression, those internalized issues. Now, having said that, yes, a lot of kids with ADHD suffer with depression, anxiety, language disorders. There are many co-occurring conditions, and anxiety and depression can be present in either one, but there's more of a tendency for there to be fewer of those external behaviors and more of those internalized ones with sluggish cognitive tempo. One of the big differentiators is they tend to get distracted less by external stimuli and more like they're just lost in their own thoughts. Yeah, the ones that are just like, that can be inattentive, but think about sluggish cognitive tempo because this is different. Is this
the same as like the fact that like it's hard for, I feel like people in modern times in general to quiet their brains? Is that like tied in? Like I have a very hard time sitting and eating something without like playing on my phone at the same time. Why can't I just focus on my food and enjoy the food? What is my problem? Is it this?
No, you definitely, honey, you do not have sluggish cognitive tempo. This tends to be very drowsy, fatigue easily. Now, you're up all night with a sick kid, you're going to be drowsy, but I'm talking about sluggish behavior, underactivity. This is not you.
This is okay.
Okay. Sometimes they're sort of come across as inarticulate. They forget what they were going to say, or they don't know how to express it correctly. A lot of blank staring, daydreaming. Yours might be on hyperdrive. And a lot of this has to do with really deciding, is this traction toward what I really want? And doing some life hacks. There are some amazing apps that will only let you open social media or video games or whatever a particular vice is for a person. These in and of themselves are not vices, but overuse. We're talking about overuse, and you need to kind of hack your external environment and whatever particular distractions for an individual, break some of those habits, and then you can start being more present.
Yeah.
That's, in this society, that's just a huge issue with how often are people supposed to be having conversation. You can even, in a restaurant, and both of them are sitting there texting and not even engaging with one another.
Yeah.
That it's really about breaking habits there. But, they appear to be apathetic. And sometimes they might be slow thinkers, but understand this is not the same thing as lack of intelligence. It might be delayed processing. There's a lot of delayed processing that goes on here. One of the great things to do for sluggish cognitive tempo, and depending on the age of the kids, obviously, too slow, just right, or too fast. You can do this with pictures. I have a couple of examples here because we need to get kids in touch with their bodies. Our bodies give us cues about, I'm too hyped up right now. I'm too low key right now. I need to go for a walk before this meeting. I'm with you. I'm alert. I'm not restless and fidgety. I'm also not zoning out. So you can show pictures and talk about what kind of energy should we have in the classroom or during homework time. Is this too slow, just right, or too fast? And have them start identifying it so they understand the concept. And then you can play games even with cars. And you're racing cars at different speeds. Is this one going too slow, too fast, or just right? Because I don't want to hit anybody. I want to be careful. Play it with games. Do reaction time games.
Yeah.
You can do that with Think Fast. Play games where they're not going to get hurt, but you're also working on sensory motor skills at the same time. They need lots of sensory motor exploration so they can start regulating that, getting more in touch with their body so they feel those internal signals we all have that we tend to not even think about, that I'm ready for this right now.
What do you recommend? Like this morning, when we were trying to get out the door and go to school, Roger was he had a great morning. Everything was clicking right along. I had set expectations. We had a really, really great morning, and he got super, fidgety, and he was being funny when we were trying to get out the door. He was kind of being silly and kind of wacky, and it was too much. It was too fast, right? I was like, we're focused. We're getting in the car. We're getting to school on time because that is, that's what we're doing. How do you manage that when something like that happens?
This game works well for that, but also ask him why. Why are we doing this? And like tonight or in the morning, depending on what, go with Roger's rhythms and when is he at his best, if there is a pattern to that. But ask him why he thinks it's important to do XYZ. That gets buy-in. He's got plenty of smarts going on. He's going to run the world one day, and have him answer those questions instead of you filling in those blanks. But also this too slow, just right, and too fast is excellent, even for kids who are overactive.
Yeah, this is so brilliant. I love it.
Awesome. Okay, let's move on. I think we got one more. Well, maybe a couple more. I don't remember. Okay, strategies. I talked about figuring out which types of attention distractibility issues your child or you are having. A distraction tracker like I have there in the upper right-hand corner. What time did it happen? That starts getting us in touch with when are we at our best? Is there a pattern? What did I eat? How much sleep did I get? It's more about morning versus afternoon versus night. And we have morning people and night people. What action was I doing? How was I feeling? You're looking for those internal triggers. Was it internal or external? Think about the environment. And now I'm going to brainstorm ideas about what I can do to improve that. Writing this stuff down, logging it, shows you patterns. It really directs what to do to make it better. We want to talk, when we talk about the schedule building, we want to talk about scheduling values, not tasks. Back to that engagement. We want to talk about why we're doing something before we talk about what it is we're going to do. The why matters. Kids connected to something they care about to get that intrinsic motivation going. Reframe self-talk and narratives. So as you're teaching kids or yourself to do this, you're like, if you start beating yourself up, man, I'm distracted again. No, this is awesome. I caught myself being distracted, so now I can redirect.
Oh, you're so good.
Or that's important. Don't beat yourself up. That is progress.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I'm so nervous about this paper. That's a great sign because it means I care about doing a good job.
Yep.
Reframe.
Yes.
Reimagine the project. So back to making it very engaging for kids. You're not writing a paper. You're an investigator. If they've watched a movie where they help them come up with things, kids are so creative. So one thing that's worked with some kids I've worked with is that they pretended that their favorite sports hero or actor, whatever, was going to read their paper. It was just make believe. It's just fun. And that gets them engaged in it. Be creative on reimagining it. How can you pull some make believe in? And for older kids, really talking about the why, and they can reimagine it. I don't have to do this. I get to do it. All of these things make a difference. Pay attention to their sensory needs. I'm not going to spend time on this because we've talked so many times about decluttering the environment, get rid of visual fray, quiet environment, manage sensory stuff for these kids. The 10-minute rule, this will be adjusted per age, but the 10-minute rule is, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes. If I want to stop after that and take a break, I can. Now, if they're 5, make it a 5-minute rule. If they're 7, make it a 7-minute rule. Why does this matter? The whole one foot in front of the other. So many times the biggest obstacle is just getting started. Right?
So true. Yes.
The first step to success is getting started. Now it is no longer overwhelming to me. I can see light at the end of the tunnel. I've talked about using timers before. We really want to, and once you got your mojo going, you're motivated and you just keep going so many times. And some of you are going, yeah, right. Not for my kids. But understand the difference between distraction and break. A break is not a distraction if it is movement, if it is quality, good snacks, things that reinvigorate the brain. We do have an attentional capacity. And if it's up to here and I take a break and I get out and move, get some fresh air, I take up less space. I've had time to process that, regenerate, and now I have time to attend some more.
Yeah.
So let's see, a concentration crown. This is great for if you're working from home as well as kids loving to do it. You can just find the silliest hat. Y'all know I have plenty of hats. And when mom or dad are wearing this hat, it means I'm in the middle of something really major and I can't be interrupted. So you can use it that way. Or kids put on their concentration cap. And
I'm so buying Corey a crown.
I need a picture. I definitely need a picture. He'll own that, man. He will be all over that.
Be like, oh, can't go in there. He's got a concentration crown on.
We talked about opportunity, cost, and effort already. Redirection signals, have an agreed upon. We talked about backing off from kids and not hovering and being over their shoulders on a recent show. So have an agreed upon thing that they collaborate, come up with. What is going to be your subtle signal where y'all don't get into it? Just you put your hand on the shoulder when you see them getting distracted, or just a code word that's not pay attention to what you're doing. Come up with those ahead of time, and then it doesn't lead to as much kind of tension. An effort pre-commitment is excellent. This is the anecdote for impulsivity. I have pre-committed that I'm going to do this today. I don't have to make the decision when the time comes and quote unquote, I don't feel like it. Okay. And that's part of that schedule building and why, what are the values and why am I doing this? I love identity packs. I am going to do this because I am becoming indistractable. I'm going to do this because these are my goals and this helps get me there. Because otherwise kids are like, I can't focus. I can't do this. I'm worried about this. That's part of reframing the narrative, but it's called an identity pack. So powerful. We talked about reactance already. The more we tell kids what to do, the less they want to do it. Even sweet kids, a lot of time. I mean, they're all sweet, but what I mean is even the ones who tend to not be major, show major rebellion. None of us want somebody else to tell us what to do. We want autonomy, and we want our kids to want autonomy and independence. We want that. So choices, and I talked about that earlier. And really, when they understand that no one is making me, I am choosing to do this because it gets me closer to XYZ. I know why I'm doing it. It's aligned with my values, my goals, what I want. It's fun for the little ones that you maybe not find a deeper purpose for. I'm choosing to do this. I had a choice between math and writing, and I chose math right now. Now I'm empowered. I am acting on my power instead of being controlled. Teach them to reflect afterwards. What went well? What do we need to redo? Look at these logs. Let kids do this on their own as much as possible. And then you can fill in the blanks, give little prompts to get them thinking about their thinking as we go along. And of course, hack external triggers. One of my favorite apps for this that I've recommended to people is the Forest app. You set a timer. It's supposed to be working on something. A tree is planted. And as long as don't pick up your phone, you don't do the thing you're not supposed to do, this forest starts growing. When you pick it up when you're not supposed to, trees die. And it's really fantastic. And I have had adults and kids use this, and they love it.
I am so excited to try it.
But there's self-control app. There are so many out there. Do what works for you. I didn't want to do a whole hack show because you can also just Google these things. I had to tell you about Forest app, though. How fun, right?
Oh, so cool. I'm writing it down right now. Build your forest.
And then finally, before we close out here, I want to talk about, I'm not going to read this line by line. What supplement should you be considering if you or your kids are having issues with inattention, distractibility, memory, irritability, a lot of those things that get associated with ADHD, ADHD-ish kinds of things. Vitamin B, C, magnesium are a team. We need these for the neurotransmitters that give us the right messages to do these skills. Vitamin C is needed for all the neurotransmitters. Zinc and iron are very tied to dopamine. Do not go out look for iron supplement without talking to your doctor. That is not a good idea. These others most likely aren't going to harm you unless you're taking crazy high amounts already. And omega-3s are usually lower in those with ADHD. So those are things you might want to think about checking into and increasing. The biggest word of warning is iron, because that needs to be a test to see if you need it or not. Avoid too much sodium, MSG, caffeine, sugar, artificial sweeteners, food dyes, dairy, gluten. Really manage how much you're getting of these. Know that with caffeine, yes, for some people, it makes you more alert. It can increase attention in the short run, but sometimes it brings out more irritability. And there's a huge emotional regulation component with a lot of kids struggling with attention and distractibility because it is a regulation thing. And it sometimes interacts negatively with stimulant medication. So be aware of that. Eat regular meals, need lots of protein because that helps us build neurotransmitters. Lots of fiber is important, really for all of us, but especially for these issues we're talking about today. Get plenty of sleep. A lot of times kids with racing brains that also make them distractible have issues falling asleep because their brains keep on racing. You can also think about a melatonin supplement. That is a neuroprotective ingredient that's naturally occurring in our bodies. And you want to take it 90 to 120 minutes before sleep time. That's important. One mistake that people sometimes make is taking it 30 minutes before bed, but we really need it early so it's worn off by morning. All right, that's it. It's body-brain connection, so I had to mention that too.
I had to write that down. You said 90 to 100 minutes before bed.
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. Because I had heard that somewhere that based on sundown, you should take it right when the sun is going down because that's when your body would naturally be releasing melatonin. So that actually lines up with what you're saying better.
Yes. And another good strategy, if you have kids who have difficulty falling asleep, this is another thing to log. Do they have difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep? What are the issues? But having them watch the sunset can really help set the circadian rhythms the way they need to be. It's a signal that really starts getting our calming system in place instead of waiting until it's time to go to sleep right now.
Yes. Oh, it's such a good idea. Oh, Heather, thank you so much for all the beautiful information today, as always. As you can see here, these are all the places where you can find Heather. virtually or in person. You guys are open now in Brain Balance Centers, and you have a new center in the Woodlands. How's it going there?
It is going great. Reception has been awesome. It's exciting.
Very exciting. And you can always find us here on Mondays at the same time, or on the replay. And then do you have another show this week, Heather?
I do, Thursday at 3:30 with Dr. Brian. I believe we're going to talk about the sympathetic portion, the parasympathetic portion of our autonomic nervous system. And that is the calming that we were just talking about. We have that stress response that serves a purpose, but sometimes it goes into overdrive. We're going to talk about how to get that rest and digest phase going the way it needs to, so that we are healthy, we sleep well, we're regulated, not anxious all the time, that kind of thing.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, as always, Heather. It was so good to chat with you.
It's always good to chat with you, Jen. And thank you so much, everyone out there. I hope you're warm and have your electricity. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Yep. We'll see you next week. Bye.